Habs insider Marc Dumont indicates that a defenseman trade has to be coming for Montreal in the organization, and this move that might be coming, whether it's at the NHL or Laval level, could have some big implications on the difference in ideology between Martin St. Louis and Kent Hughes. We're going to be diving into all of that and the implications that it has on the Habs' future this season. Plus, another Habs reporter says that he is basically certain that the Habs will get a first or second round pick in exchange for Cayden, Primeau, or Jake Allen. Some crazy stuff all on this episode of Habs Digest. But guys, before we get into the video, I'm just going to do this thing. I haven't done it in a while since we reached 10,000. But hey, we reached 10,000. Why not be able to reach some more? Over 50% of you, over half of the people watching these videos are not subscribed yet. If you guys could hit that button, we'd really appreciate it as we continue on to our next future goals of 15K and beyond. But Jesse, the first thing I want to talk about in this video is a bit of Slafkovsky stuff, and he's in some great company. We already knew this, but a tweet came out today showing the points leader so far this season for different countries, and surprise, surprise, Juraj Slafkovsky is tied with Tomáš Tatar, former Hab Tatar, for the lead for Slovakians in the NHL at this moment. Now, to be fair, this list is missing some significant people. For example, David Pastrnak is not here, even though he has 55 points on the season for Czechia. They didn't list it. But at the same time, Jesse, the fact that Slav is already there, we already know he's the future of Slovak hockey, alongside Nemec, Mesar, whoever. There's a lot of great Slovakian prospects. But at the same time, he is, I would say, the single most impactful Slovakian at the NHL level this season, which is kind of a crazy thing to say, but also kind of not. He's playing 20 minutes a night for the Habs in the top line. He has 14 points in 39 games, which on the surface maybe isn't the most beautiful stat line. But the fact that at 19, he's already leading Slovakians in the NHL in points, I know there's not many of them, but it still is just kind of an awesome thing to see.
For sure. And it's his first time here where he's starting to hang with the big dogs in the leagues in terms of point production, and certainly not for the last, for sure. Slovakia is a little bit lower down on that list at 14 points, on the season, but all the same, this is a big accomplishment. Tomáš Tatar, he's used to putting up points in the NHL for a long time, and kind of the passing of the guard of the next great player in Slovak hockey, you have to feel like there's a lot of really good players, coming up. You got Mesar as well. You got Dvorsky and everything else. So it's really nice to see, but it's not just this article where you see this is points wise, this is merit based, but just the buzz around Slav, right? Where it's okay, now pregame, the cameras are more on him. What's he doing? Kind of that making of a star is really starting to come just into full effect, right? And I think it's so well deserved. And I think he's just doing everything right. And we're just seeing that step-by-step process, right? Where he's just going to continue to do that. And then that next step, Josh, is starting to finish some of those amazing opportunities, whether it's in close on the deke or on those one-timers.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we were talking about it. Early in his career, I couldn't really do a breakout pass, couldn't really do that. And then the next step was, okay, he can make that pass. Now can he enter on his own? And then it's he can enter but not make the play. And then he jumps. Now he can make the play. And now he can make the deke. And now he can take the shot. The next step is finishing the shot. But he exudes that star energy a lot of the time, right? And I know for all you Slovakian viewers, hello, ahoy, and let us know down below. I know that Slafkovsky is basically treated like he's a big star in Slovakia. A lot of Slovakian viewers watch every game, right? So let us know down below about his impact in Slovakia, because we are extremely excited for him to continue this trend of Slovakian hockey dominance. But now we got to get into some other trade talks, and we've been talking a lot about Jake Allen, and actually yesterday's video, Jesse, you tossed out the idea that the Habs could maybe get a second round pick for Jake Allen, and we were kind of I guess it's not impossible, but it might be a stretch. And I think a lot of the commenters were kind of saying the same thing, a second is insane. But Brian Wilde, Brian Wilde, a lot of you guys know Brian Wilde, of course, 40,000 followers on Twitter almost, or on X. He's a Montreal Canadiens reporter. Call the Wild, shout out to him. He was on TSN 690 or Montreal 690 radio, and he was speaking about a lot of different things, but there was a clip about 13 minutes in. If you guys want to go watch this for yourself, here's the title for the article. You can search that and you'll find it. He was kind of asked, what do you think the Habs are going to get? He said, I think they'll get a first or second round pick for Primeau or Allen. And the hosts were kind of what? Really? He's like, oh yeah, I think so for sure. I think you don't see these leaks from Elliot Friedman saying Kent Hughes really is asking a high price, and, asking for maybe a higher round pick. You don't see these leaks about the Habs denying a 6th round pick, this kind of stuff. He said, we know Kent Hughes is the guy who's going to wait, and he's going to get his price. He's basically saying to other teams, at least in Brian's opinion, hey, this is what I want, and if you don't agree with me, then we're done here. And that could pay off big or it could flop. We don't really know yet, but he's convinced that the Habs could get a first or a second for Jake Allen. Jesse, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think a first is out of the realm of possibility? Because I was just kind of shocked when he said this, but he made some sense.
I mean, you know, getting a second round player, you're looking at a borderline NHL type of player. So for trading kind of a sure thing in Jake Allen for what is potentially, you know, an NHL player in a second round, it doesn't sound too out of the realm of possibility. And the reason, you know, I bring this up is because a lot of the rumors around the league prior to Elliot Friedman going on Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday night and mentioning about the 6th round pick was that there was a lot of rumors about it being a higher pick before that, either first or second. And then he was kind of mentioning that this information was kind of passed on to Friedman to try and him say this on camera to try and lower the value, right? That this, you know, that this information was being passed on from the lease to try and affect the market, right? Which a lot of this information really can. You know, so it's interesting to see kind of the gamemanship that is involved in these wheelings and dealings of these trades and how that is really affected. But I mean, Kent Hughes, he's not taking the bluff at all. He's sticking to his guns, right? And I think he's doing right. Like if we could possibly get a second, which would be amazing, let alone a first for Jake Allen. I mean, I think he's doing so well to hold on and be patient.
It's crazy, right? And I mean, the Habs got a good second round pick for Brett Kulak. Don't forget that, and that turned into Lane Hudson. And we also got William Lagesson along with that. He's been playing for the Leafs recently too. But like, I think I know there's a lot of talk about these goalies, like Samsonov passing through waivers, Comrie. We've mentioned that a lot, but at the same time, a second, like there are teams that are willing to give that up if there's stability in net, right? There are teams in the league who might be looking at that and say, 1 second round pick for us in the middle of our contention window. I don't necessarily think that's a bad idea to get a sure thing in net, especially if Montreal retains salary. So it's very interesting. He was very certain about it. But at the same time, Jesse, I'm going to do a bit of a transition here because he was also talking about how, now, again, let me make this clear. He did not say, in fact, he made it a very clear point to say, I am not saying that Martin St. Louis and Kent Hughes are butting heads. You know, there's nothing within the organization like that. There absolutely is not. However, a situation could arise where we were talking before the show, how Marty and Kent Hughes, at some point, right, Marty wants these guys to make the playoffs, get that experience would be so valuable for these young guys. But at the same time, Kent Hughes might not be inclined to make a trade to help make that playoff push. And that transitions very well into our final topic, which is Marc Dumont saying that he indicates a Habs trade is coming, but he believes it'll probably be for Laval. As he says, the defensive situation is ripe for trade. And as you look through Laval, there's a lot of guys down there. So adding Xhekaj certainly helped, but there's just too many healthy defensemen in Montreal, in Laval, and it gives Kent Hughes a perfect opportunity to add reinforcements at either level. Jesse, I want to get your take on this. Like, do you think there's ever a world where, I mean, look, I don't think they're going to argue or anything like that. Let's get that straight. But at the same time, there might be a difference in goals where Marty's like, I want to make the playoffs, I want to make the playoffs, I want to make the playoffs. That experience is invaluable. Whereas Kent Hughes is like, maybe we go for depth, maybe we go for prospects. What are your thoughts on this whole thing?
Yeah, absolutely. There's some issues sometimes because they're both so justified in kind of believing in their own type of ways, right? You have to feel like having the 3 goalie rotation really isn't helping us win as many games as we could have. You have to feel like if we were playing Montembeault a couple more times, we might have a couple more victories. We might be really, really in the thick of that playoff push. So Kent Hughes, he's got more of that long-term approach, where of course Marty, as the head coach and a former player, you just got that in your DNA where you really want to win every night. So, I mean, they both have valid reasons for kind of feeling the way they do. I think they're really good friends. That's why Kent hired Marty in the first place. And again, shows why it's sometimes good to hire a friend where you can kind of, even though you can have these contentious issues where you can kind of talk it out. At the end of the day, I think they're on the same page, but at the same time, it's more the Habs play that just puts them in like such a precarious situation. Like, what do you do? Because I think for right now, like for the AHL, trading somebody like Kovacevic, who was mentioned, you know, or possibly like Lindstrom, for like, you know, they're saying maybe you can't get an impact guy for the NHL, but you can get a top 6 AHL type of guy. So you could bring in, you know, somebody to really help the Laval Rocket. Now with Xhekaj there, they're on fire. They're making a playoff push. So that would be a way to encourage a team that's close to the playoffs and really help take them further, right? Mm-hmm. But the same thing could be said for the Montreal Canadiens. We're kind of close to getting into that playoff picture, but obviously it's a little bit of a different thing, right? For Laval, it's okay for them to get in the playoffs, but with Montreal, it's like we want to be a little bit more patient just because we want that sort of long-term success, but it's kind of the same sort of question, right? That comes based off their play. So I don't see any sort of drastic moves there at all, but I think it's more of a thing of we're having too much defenseman right now to maybe kind of ship out one of our guys like Kovacevic, which really doesn't fit that long-term plan of our core, to maybe help bolster the AHL. Now that would be a move that I could get behind.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that would make a lot of sense. I think JF Poole would be ecstatic if that were to happen. I'm sure he's ecstatic right now with Xhekaj and the plethora of young prospects that are, well, the young guys that are doing well right now. But it's so interesting, and it's such a dilemma because whoever thought we'd be in this situation, almost limbo, right? And like basically the second, maybe third year into this rebuild, right? I guess sort of third, but at the same time, it's like, okay, well, the Habs are sort of an outside shot to make the playoffs, but it's not impossible. And it's possible if they really continue to go, maybe if Monty gets some more starts and stays hot down the stretch, that can carry you maybe close to a playoff spot. Of course, Newhook comes back. Let's say he starts playing well. Same thing with RV Pinard. Let's say you get something for Pearson, who is somewhat expendable at this point, right? There's so many question marks. Do the Habs go for that winning culture move? Do they go for kind of future assets, more picks for who they have right now? There's a lot of questions yet to be answered, but regardless, clearly Mark Dumont thinks a trade is coming soon, whether it's at the NHL or AHL level. Let us know down below. What do you guys think? What should the Habs do? I mean, it's such a tough question, and a question I don't think anyone thought we'd be asking at this point in the season. But hey, honestly, I'm extremely glad we are, because it means we're seeing success before we ever expected it, and that's always a good thing. But that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Help us reach, I don't know, 15K? That sounds like a pretty good goal. It's a bit of a ways away, but we hit 10. We know we can hit 15. Thank you all for your support. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host, Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.